Rain tapped angrily against the tin roof that night, drumming like impatient fingers. The kind of rain that made roads slick and headlights blur. In a small sitting room that smelled faintly of kerosene and supper long eaten, Amina Lawal sat with her 3 children tucked around her like petals around a stem. The power was out again, and the only light came from a kerosene lantern that threw soft, trembling shadows across the walls. Her husband, Musa, was late. He was never late. You are welcome to my channel, my dearest listeners. Before we continue this story, I want to ask you for a small favor. If you like my stories, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. In the comments, let me know where you are listening from. It gladdens my heart to know where my listeners are based. Thank you. On normal evenings, Musa would burst in with his booming laugh, calling, "Amina, my queen, who missed me today?" Then the children would charge at him, tiny warriors demanding sweets from his pockets. But tonight, the house was too quiet, and the laughter that usually lived there seemed to have stepped outside for fresh air and forgotten to return. Amina's fingers fidgeted with the edge of her wrapper. She glanced at the old wall clock. 9:48 p.m. Her phone buzzed. A call. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. A voice, shaky, official. "Madam, there has been an accident." Her world tilted. Words tumbled across the line like stones. Collision, hospital, critical, come immediately. She didn't remember how she got up, how she tied her scarf, how she found her keys. Only the children's scared eyes followed her, big and shiny like wet marbles. "Mama, where are you going?" little Ibrahim whispered. She knelt, heart rattling in her ribs. "I'll be back soon. Stay with Hajara." She touched each head like a blessing she hoped would protect them. Then she ran into the rain. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and yesterday's sorrow. Nurses moved like ghosts in white. Amina rushed to the emergency ward, shoes squelching water with each step. "Musa Lawal," she breathed at the reception desk, voice cracking. The nurse's eyes told the story before her mouth could. A kind of pity that tasted like metal. She guided Amina to a quiet room where a doctor waited with a clipboard, a face carved from solemn stone. "We are sorry, he didn't make it." The words landed like stones dropped into deep water. No splash, just sinking. Amina's knees buckled, the room spun, and her soul felt ripped open like fabric caught on a nail. Musa, her partner in laughter, in struggle, in children, gone. She pressed her palms to her face, and the sound that escaped her was raw, the kind that makes even walls listen. Outside the hospital, thunder rolled as though the sky mourned too. She stumbled home hours later, socked and smaller somehow. Her children had fallen asleep waiting for her, curled together like kittens for safety. The youngest stirred when she entered. "Mama, where is Papa?" Amina swallowed, throat burning. She sat beside them, gathering them into her arms. "Papa has gone to rest with God." Silence stretched, then broke into wails. 3 small voices crying into her chest, their world forever changed. The lantern flickered, casting orange halos around their grief. That night, the house grew heavier. Musa's absence sat in every corner like a cold shadow. Amina lay awake on the mattress, staring at the ceiling, hearing the ghost of her husband's laughter in the walls. Bills waited like wolves. Life, which once felt manageable, now looked like a dark road with no streetlights. But somewhere, just barely, a spark of resolve glowed inside her. Not hope exactly, but something stubborn, a mother's kind of fire. Morning would come, and she would stand. Dawn arrived like a reluctant visitor, its pale light slipping through the thin curtains and landing on Amina's swollen eyes. She had not slept so much as drifted in and out of memories. Musa's voice, his smell of engine oil and cologne. The last smile he gave her that morning, casual, unaware it was a goodbye. Now she woke to a home that felt foreign. The children were already staring at her when she sat up, as if afraid she too might vanish if they blinked. Hajara, the eldest at 15, had wrapped a scarf around her head and was sweeping the compound with slow, thoughtful strokes. Kamal, 11, sat on a stool fiddling with broken radio parts, the way grief made some children busy themselves with anything.
Little Ibrahim clung to her wrapper, thumb in his mouth, eyes wide with questions she couldn't yet answer. They had lost a father. She had lost half of her soul. Amina tied her wrapper firmly, as though gathering courage around her waist. Breakfast was thin pap and fried plantain, portions small because she was already counting coins in her mind. Musa's salary had been their anchor, and now she felt herself adrift on a sea that grew deeper every second. She reached for her handbag, the one with frayed sides and a zipper that protested when pulled. Inside lay Musa's wallet. She hesitated long enough for her throat to thicken again, then she opened it. His ID card, 2,500 naira, a crumpled picture of her and the children, smiling like they believed tomorrow was guaranteed. She pressed the picture to her chest. A knock shattered the quiet. It was Musa's brother, Uncle Danjuma, standing tall in his starched kaftan that smelled of perfume and power. Grief flickered in his eyes, but duty outweighed tenderness. "Amina," he said after a stiff greeting, "may God give you patience. About the funeral arrangements, the family will discuss what is appropriate." The children peeked from behind her. She nodded, wiping her cheeks quickly. "Thank you, brother. Whatever must be done." His gaze swept the modest living room, lingering on the cracked tiles and the faded sofa. A sharp sigh. "You should consider moving back to the village for a while. Things will be tougher here in the city without Musa." Amina's stomach twisted. The city held Musa's memories, their dreams, the children's schools. The village meant starting over with gossip-filled eyes watching her like a woman broken beyond repair. She bowed her head politely. "I will think about it." He left a brown envelope before he walked away. Inside was 5,000 naira. A gift of condolence, heavy with the silent message, "You will struggle." Later, Amina sat with Hajara in the kitchen grinding peppers, tears hot against the cool morning breeze. "Mama," Hajara whispered, voice fragile, "are we going to be okay?" Amina wiped her face with the back of her hand. "We will be. We will learn to breathe again." Though she wasn't sure if she believed the words, she spoke them like seeds thrown into dry soil, trusting they might grow. The funeral days blurred into one another, the steady stream of mourners, the prayers, the wails, the plates of jollof and moi moi passed around by women in bright wrappers. People spoke condolences in careful tones. Some hugged her, others whispered behind her back about life insurance, inheritance, and how young widows often suffer in silence. Amina moved through it all like someone underwater, every step heavy. When the dust settled and the condolences dried into memory, reality remained like a stubborn stain. School fees loomed, rent loomed, hunger loomed. She picked up her old trade of tailoring with trembling hands. The sewing machine sat like a patient friend in the corner, rusty from disuse, yet loyal. She cleaned it, oiled it, and pushed the pedal. The rhythmic tack-tack-tack became the sound of her fight against despair. She sewed wrappers for neighbors, mended torn school uniforms, stitched blouses for women preparing for weddings. Her fingers bled sometimes, but her pockets grew just enough for survival. On days work was scarce, she sold puff-puff by the roadside while Ibrahim slept on her lap and Kamal helped count the coins at sunset. Nights were for crying softly into her pillow, careful not to wake the children. But beneath every tear, she felt something small growing inside her. Grit, a kind of fierce courage woven from necessity and love. She learned to haggle, to stretch meals, to wear dignity even when shame tried to strip it away. The children saw her strength and mirrored it, standing a little taller each day. One evening, as she washed clothes in a plastic basin, Kamal approached holding a carefully repaired lamp. "Mama," he said, pride glowing in his eyes. Amina stared. The lamp that had been dead for months flickered to life like a tiny star. Her heart swelled. "My son," she breathed, pulling him close. "Your hands are blessed." Hajara began helping with designs, sewing straight lines with a concentration beyond her years. Ibrahim started learning small chores, determined to be useful. They were no longer just grieving children. They were partners in survival, three flames against the dark. And Amina, though scarred by loss, was beginning to learn a new kind of breath. Not the soft, easy breathing of comfort, but the sharp inhale of a woman who refuses to drown. A woman reshaped by struggle, carrying her family like a tree carries nests through stormy seasons. The world had taken her husband, but it had not taken her will. The first month after Musa's burial moved like a slow cart on a muddy road. Survival became routine. Grief became background noise, like a radio playing faintly from another room. Life did not ask if they were ready. It simply pushed forward. Amina kept stitching, fingers dancing over cloth as if fabric was prayer. Yet even prayer sometimes felt thin against the weight of reality. One evening, after a long day at her sewing table, she sat on the small veranda, gazing at the darkening sky. The children gathered around her, their faces dimly lit by the lantern that Kamal had fixed. They were growing quietly, grief shaping them like potters shape clay. Hajara spread her school books on her lap. Her handwriting, neat as pleats on fresh Ankara, filled the page. "Mama," she said softly, "I want to finish school, no matter what." Amina looked at her daughter, a young woman emerging from the shell of girlhood. "Inshallah," she replied, voice steady even as worry pinched her heart. School fees were due in a week. Receipts sat on the table like reminders of promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Kamal cleared his throat. He was no longer the playful boy who once raced bicycles with neighborhood kids. Responsibility had wrapped itself around him like a second skin. "Mama," he said, holding up the repaired lamp like a trophy. "Maybe I can fix things for people. Radios, lamps, anything. They will pay small. A surge of pride ran through Amina. "You are gifted," she said, "but you are still a child. Your studies come first." "Yes, Mama," he nodded, though his eyes hinted at a future bigger than homework assignments. Little Ibrahim climbed into Amina's lap, his small hands gripping her wrapper. In his innocent voice, he asked, "Mama, will we ever laugh like before?" A moment of silence fell, fragile as cracked glass. Amina hugged him close, breathing the scent of baby soap and dried sweat. "One day," she whispered, "when our hearts have healed." But healing wasn't magic. It needed time, effort, and sometimes sacrifice. Morning rose like a weary blessing. Amina took a loan of fabric from a market woman named Mama Tino, promising to pay back after sales. "Amina, I trust you," the woman said, though trust in the market was more business math than affection. Amina stitched day and night, eyes burning as she worked under the lamp Kamal repaired. Hajara helped draw chalk lines on cloth, her young fingers learning discipline. Ibrahim fetched water, swept floors, sometimes sleeping beside the sewing machine with thread spools as makeshift toys. School reopened. Amina's heart ached as she counted her money. It wasn't enough, not for all three. She sat long into the night thinking, her mind juggling solutions like stones. Sell the radio, sell Musa's watch. She held the watch in her palm, thumb brushing its cold surface. Selling it felt like letting go of the last thread of her husband's memory. She pressed it to her chest and returned it to its box. The next morning, she gathered the children. "My angels," she began, voice gentle as the first call to prayer. "We cannot pay all your school fees now, but we will pay, just not all at once." Hajara's eyes glossed with worry. "Mama, what will happen?" "You will go to school," Amina promised. "Maybe one of you will resume late, just for a week or two." Before she could choose who, Kamal stood up. "Let Hajara go first. She is in senior class. She must not miss too much." Hajara's lips trembled. "But Kamal..." He forced a small smile. "I will manage. I can read Mama's old books. It's only temporary." Little Ibrahim tugged his shorts. "I will stay with Kamal," he declared, eager to be part of something big. Amina's throat tightened. 3 children dividing their future like slices of bread. But there was pride too, tall as a minaret. The days that followed were hard as unripe plantain. While Hajara attended school with pressed uniform and carefully mended collar, Kamal stayed home, helping his mother sew and occasionally experimenting with broken electronics neighbors discarded. Amina watched him connect wires, tongue picking from his lips in concentration. Sometimes sparks flashed, sometimes things burnt. Once he shouted in delight when a radio crackled back to life, singing high life like a ghost resurrected. Ibrahim tagged along like a small echo, carrying tools, asking questions, learning faster than anyone realized. Hajara studied under lantern light, determination sharpening her like a blade. She was no longer just a child. She was a dream walking on tired feet, refusing to fall. Teachers noticed. One day she returned with a flare of excitement. "Mama, I came first in class," she announced, holding out a result sheet like a medal. Amina hugged her tight, tears wetting her daughter's hair. "Your father would be proud." That night, they cooked rice with smoked fish, a luxury meal wrapped in celebration. Kamal whistled. Ibrahim danced clumsily. And for the first time since Musa's death, laughter fluttered around the house like freed butterflies. It was brief. It was precious. Amina watched her children and felt a strange warmth. Not joy exactly, but hope wearing new shoes. The sun rose lazily that Saturday, throwing soft gold over the compound. Roosters crowed like they owned the morning, and the smell of wood smoke drifted from neighboring kitchens. Amina tied her wrapper and stepped into the yard, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Today would be long. She could already feel it in her bones. The pot on the fire crackled with boiling beans. She stirred it slowly, steam kissing her face, her thoughts far from the pot. She watched the sky instead, thinking of Musa. If he were here, he'd already be fussing about salt or teasing her for adding too much pepper. She blinked away the memory. Some mornings, grief felt like a stone in her pocket moving with each step, reminding her of what she had lost. Inside the house, Kamal swept the living room, whistling through the gap in his front teeth. Ibrahim followed behind him with a short broom half his size, sweeping in zigzags that made more dust than progress. Hajara ironed her uniform on the wooden table, the iron heated with glowing charcoal she had fanned to life. There was routine now, a rhythm, not easy, but theirs. When the beans finished cooking, Amina dished it onto 4 plates. No meat, no fish, just beans and hope. The children sat around the low table, murmuring Bismillah before they ate. Between mouthfuls, Hajara asked, "Mama, will Kamal return to school next week?" Amina's spoon paused. She smiled thinly, like fabric stretched too tight. "Inshallah, my child, we are working toward it." She didn't say the truth aloud. The money in her pocket wasn't enough. Not yet. Later that afternoon, she packed her sewing machine into a large black nylon bag and slung it over her shoulder. Her back complained, but she ignored it. She planned to visit the market square. A new wedding was coming up, and bridesmaids meant fresh business if she could catch it. She kissed the children goodbye and asked Hajara to be in charge. The road to the market was dusty and humming with life. Sellers shouted prices, children chased tires, downfall buses honked like angry geese. Amina walked through it all, carrying dignity like a fragile glass bowl. She sat up under a tree where tailors gathered. "Amina, you are here early," one woman said, adjusting her glasses. "Better early than late," Amina replied, smiling. She displayed her fabrics and sample blouses. Customers drifted in slowly. A young woman planning her engagement picked a bright green lace. "Sister, how much to sew it?" she asked. 5,000, Amina said. Reduce it, 4,000. Amina hesitated. She needed the money. "Okay, 4. Bring by evening." The woman nodded, relieved. Amina got to work, measuring, cutting, stitching beneath the shade of the tree as buses coughed dust into the air. Hours passed. Sweat trickled down her back. Her fingers cramped, but she finished the blouse neatly. The customer returned, smiling wide. Perfect! My fiancé will love it." She paid and left. Amina counted the note discreetly, heart lifting. Slowly, steadily, her income was growing like a plant climbing a wall. Evening settled like a shawl. Amina returned home with tired feet and a bag of groceries clinking softly against her hip. She had brought fish, something she hadn't brought home in weeks. The thought of surprising her children warmed her. She opened the door expecting laughter. Instead, the room was quiet. Too quiet. She found Hajara sitting on the mat, head in her hands. Kamal and Ibrahim sat beside her, faces pale. "Hajara, what happened?" Tears slipped down the girl's cheeks. "Mama, the landlord came. He said rent is due in 4 days." Her voice trembled. "He said if we cannot pay, he will lock the house." Amina's heart slammed against her ribs. Rent, a mountain she had not yet climbed. "How much?" she whispered. 70,000. 70. The number echoed in her mind like a hammer against stone. She felt the room shrinking, walls inching closer. Tears threatened, but she swallowed them like bitter medicine. She would not break in front of her children. Amina exhaled slowly and wiped Hajara's cheeks. She said, "We will handle it," voice steady, though panic scratched her insides. That night, she cooked rice with the fish she had bought. The children's faces brightened with each taste. They chatted about school, about Kamal's latest invention, a radio that only picked one station but played it loudly and proudly, and about Ibrahim's new friend down the street. Their voices were small bulbs of light in the darkness. But when they fell asleep, Amina sat alone by the lantern. The fish smell still lingered in the air. Bills lay on the table. Rent, school fees, loan repayment. Her eyes stung. She covered her face with her hands and cried quietly. Tears dripped on her lap, warm and helpless. She cried for Musa, for the weight she carried, for the future she was trying to stitch together from scraps. Outside, dogs barked in the night as though mourning with her. Eventually, she wiped her face. She stood. She prayed. She whispered into the silence, "Ya Allah, open a way for us." The room felt lighter after the prayer, though her problems remained like bricks in her chest. Still, something shifted. Not the situation, but her resolve. For her children, she would fight like a lioness defending her cubs. She walked to where they slept. Ibrahim's small hand hung off the mattress. She touched it gently. Kamal snored softly. Hajara clutched her school notebook, even in sleep. Amina's heart swelled with fierce love. "Tomorrow will be better," she whispered into the darkness. She did not know how, but mothers often speak tomorrow into existence, even when today feels like a burnt pot on the stove. And with tear-streaked cheeks and a heart heavier than her sewing machine, she sat back at her table and began to sew into the night, the needle punching through cloth like hope punching holes in despair. One stitch, one tear, one prayer at a time. Morning tiptoed in through the window like a shy child. Amina woke with a stiff neck, still sitting at the sewing table from the night before. Threads clung to her wrapper like tiny flags of exhaustion. Her fingers throbbed from hours of stitching, but she smiled weakly. She had finished 3 blouses and 2 wrappers. It would fetch something. Maybe not enough for rent, but every naira was a drop toward filling the bucket. The children stared and stretched like yawning kittens. Ibrahim crawled into her lap, warm and soft. "Mama, you didn't sleep last night?" he mumbled against her chest. Amina kissed the top of his head. "Sleep will come later. First, success must come." Hajara lit the stove and Kamal fetched water. Morning routines had become a dance. Each child knew their step. Amina watched them move and felt both sorrow and pride. They had grown in ways grief should never require children to grow. During breakfast of gari and groundnuts, Amina cleared her throat. "We need to talk," she said softly. Silence settled like dew. The children glanced at one another. "The landlord gave us 4 days. We must find 70,000 naira." She paused, letting it sink in. But we will not leave this house. We will not go back to the village. Your father built dreams here. Hajara nodded slowly, determination glazing her eyes. What will we do, Mama? Kamal asked. Amina exhaled. We walk harder than before. They did. Word spread through the neighborhood that the widow with the quiet voice sews beautifully. Soon, customers trickled in like streams feeding a river. Amina's machine clattered from dawn to dusk. Hajara helped cut patterns with precision beyond her age. Kamal ran deliveries, earning small tips. Ibrahim held pins for his mother like a little soldier guarding treasure. But time was running like water between fingers. 3 days left. On the second evening, Amina visited the school to discuss fee extension for Kamal. She carried hope like a fragile egg. The headmaster listened, adjusting his glasses. Madam Amina, I understand your situation, but without fees, we cannot allow Kamal into class. Her heart sank. He continued, voice softening. However, there is an NGO scholarship form for bright children. It closes tomorrow. If he passes the screening, school fees will be fully covered. Amina blinked, hope flaring. What must we do? Bring Kamal by 8 in the morning. He will take a test. She thanked him until gratitude overflowed her voice, then hurried home, heart pounding like a festival drum. That night, Kamal studied under the repaired lamp, eyes sharp with purpose. Ibrahim sat beside him, pretending to read, turning pages upside down. Hajara coached him with maths questions, while Amina sewed silently, watching them with a warmth she hadn't felt in months. The house buzzed with focus. It felt alive again. The test morning arrived bright and brisk. Amina held Kamal's hand as they walked to the school compound. He wore his best shirt, ironed crisp, collar a bit too big. His face was a mixture of fear and bravery. Mama, he whispered, what if I fail? She knelt, looking him directly in the eyes. My son, you carry your father's strength and my stubbornness. You will try. That is enough. He nodded. She released his hand, but her prayers clung to him as he walked into the classroom. Hours stretched like slow chewing. Amina waited outside, pacing under a mango tree. She stitched a small tear in her wrapper to calm her nerves. Hajara arrived during break, holding Ibrahim's hand. You think he will pass? Hajara asked. I must, Amina whispered. When Kamal finally emerged, his face bright as midday sun, Amina knew before he spoke. Mama, I passed, he shouted, waving a slip of paper like victory itself. They said I got one of the highest scores. She didn't think. She ran to him, hugging him so tightly he gasped. Hajara screamed with joy. Ibrahim jumped, clapping wildly. A teacher approached with a kind smile. Madam, your son has potential. He will go far. The words filled Amina like water fills a dry throat. Kamal's school fees were covered, one heavy burden lifted, one child secured, but rent still loomed like an unmovable hill. The deadline arrived like a final drumbeat. The landlord marched in, key jangling like a threat. Madam Amina, today is the day. His voice carried no softness. Amina swallowed, standing tall. Please, give me few hours. Customers will pick clothes today. He grunted. Evening, not beyond. She nodded. Hours crawled. Customers came slowly, paying in small notes. Evening approached. The sun dipped like a coin sinking into water. Amina counted the money with trembling fingers. 52,000 naira. Not enough. Her heart stuttered. Then, just as despair began to cast its shadow, a woman she didn't know walked into the compound, elegant, with bold lipstick and a gele wrapped high like confidence. She held a richly patterned asoki. Are you the tailor Amina? She asked. Yes, Amina replied, wiping her hands. I need this sewn before a burial tomorrow. I was told you're the best here. I will pay well. Amina measured the fabric, mind racing. I can finish tonight. The woman smiled. Good. I will return by 8. Payment is 30,000 naira. 30. Enough to cross the line. Amina walked like fire. Needles flew. Machine clattered. Hajara helped with hemming. Kamal fetched thread. Ibrahim held torchlight when Nepa took light like a thief in the night. Sweat soaked her back. Fingers cramped. She stitched perfection into every seam, fueled by desperation and faith. At exactly 8:12 p.m., the woman returned. She tried the outfit. It fit like destiny itself. "This is excellent work," she praised, counting crisp notes into Amina's trembling palm. Amina exhaled shakily, tears burning her eyes. She ran to the landlord's house with Kamal at her side and paid every naira. The landlord blinked, surprised. "You did it." Amina said, "We did," thinking of her 3 children waiting at home with hungry smiles. When she returned, Hajara rushed into her arms. Ibrahim spun around chanting, "No moving, no moving." Kamal grinned like sunrise. Amina cooked beans again that night, but this time they added ripe plantain fried golden brown. Laughter filled the house like fresh wind after rain. For the first time since Musa's passing, Amina felt the future shift slightly toward light. School fees had found a friend in grace. Rent had bowed to persistence, and hope, once a dim ember, now glowed like coal catching fire. Ears began to move with more confidence, like someone who finally learned how to walk after a fall. Not quickly, but steadily. Amina's business kept growing. The children were no longer the fragile trio stumbling through grief. They were becoming determined shapes of their future. Kamal was in school full-time now, courtesy of his scholarship. His teachers often called him that clever boy who fixes things. Radios, chargers, lamps, even the headmaster's faulty fans surrendered to his nimble fingers. Customers knocked on Amina's door sometimes, not for sewing, but for repairs. She would smile and send them to Kamal, who worked with focused delight. Hajara continued to top her class, her intelligence blooming like a hidden garden after rain. Ibrahim, 7 now, was still all laughter and curiosity, though he too had memories of the hard days etched lightly behind his smile. But this chapter is not about them. This is Kamal's chapter. He grew tall and slender, with hands always smudged in grease, mind always humming with ideas. He wanted to be an engineer. Bridges fascinated him. Roads, machines, anything humans built that carried weight. "Imagine," he would say, eyes sparkling, "if I build bridges that never collapse. People will be safe. Mama will never worry about roads again." Amina would laugh softly while sewing, pride warming her like fresh bread. "You will build them, my son, one day." But Kamal carried something inside him that he didn't speak about, a fear hidden beneath ambition. The night Musa died lived rent-free in his memory. He remembered waiting beside the lantern, the rain beating the roof, his father's empty seat beside the door. And though he was only 11 then, now 16, he often replayed the accident in his mind like a scratched record. If I had begged him to stay home that night, if I had told him not to drive in the rain, if I had checked his car. Sometimes he wondered if a bridge or a road somewhere could have been made better, stronger, safer. Maybe then his father would come home every night, smelling of engine oil and laughter. Grief, when trapped inside a growing boy, becomes a quiet architect. It builds determination, but also ghosts. One scorching afternoon, Kamal stood at the roadside selling puff-puff with Ibrahim to make extra money for school materials. A trailer sped past, its tires screeching dangerously as it swerved to avoid a pothole. Dust clouded the air, drivers shouted, a woman cursed, children scattered. Kamal stared at the pothole, heart pounding. Bad roads kill, he thought. Just like that night. Ibrahim tugged his sleeve. "Kamal, are you okay?" He blinked. "Yes, I'm fine. Let's sell before the sun melts us." But he wasn't fine. Something had stirred in him. That evening, after dropping the last tray of puff-puff back in Mama Tino's shop, Kamal sat outside with a broken bicycle he'd found in the trash weeks earlier. Ibrahim sat nearby, playing with bottle tops. The orange glow of sunset washed everything in honey. Kamal tightened bolts, straightened the chain, replaced the rusted brake cable with wire. The bicycle came back to life under his fingers. Hajara watched from the doorway, amazed. "Kamal, you resurrected it," she teased. He grinned. "Bicycles are easier than radios. Everywhere you look, something broken is asking to be fixed." But inside him, a voice whispered, "Not everything broken is easy to fix." Time leapt like a page turning. Kamal graduated secondary school with distinction. The foundation scholarship offered to sponsor his university education. "Civil engineering?" the interviewer asked during his scholarship renewal interview. Kamal smiled shyly. "Yes, sir. I want to build bridges, strong ones." "Any particular reason?" the man asked. Kamal hesitated. His throat tightened. He could say, "Because it's prestigious," or "Because I am good at maths." But he didn't. He told the truth, voice low but firm. "My father died on a bad road during heavy rain. I want to build roads and bridges so families are safe." The room fell quiet. The interviewer nodded slowly. "Pain can be a blueprint for purpose. You will make something of this." University life opened like a doorway into a bigger world. Kamal struggled at first. The campus was loud, chaotic, thrilling. Classes demanded focus. Assignments piled up like bricks. But he worked hard. Sometimes too hard. Nights found him hunched over drawings and equations, lamps glowing past midnight, just like his mother years ago. He rarely went out with friends. He rarely joined parties. When others relaxed, he was sketching bridge arches, calculating tensile strength, drawing lines as if they were paths towards healing. His lecturers called him brilliant. His mates called him the fixer. But when the rain fell, Kamal froze. Raindrops drumming on roofs dragged him back to the night they lost Musa. He would sit by the window, heart racing, watching cars splash through floods, wondering if another family would be broken tonight. He never spoke of it, not to Amina, not to Hajara, not even to himself. He carried the grief quietly, like a toolbox inside his chest. One evening, during exam season, Amina visited him in the hostel with containers of jollof rice and fried chicken saved for a special day. Her eyes scanned the cluttered room, engineering models, papers everywhere, tools scattered like landmines. "You work too much," she said gently. "Rest is part of success." Kamal shrugged. "I just want to make you proud, Mama." She cupped his face in her palms. "You already have. Your father too is smiling in heaven." Kamal looked down, throat tight. He wanted to ask her whether heaven had safe bridges, whether Musa walked on roads of light, but he only nodded. "Eat," Amina said, "and sleep." He obeyed because for Amina, obedience was love. Kamal's first major project came in his third year when a lecturer announced a bridge design competition for students across the state. The winning design would be built to connect two river-separated communities who often risked their lives crossing with boats. Kamal's heart thrummed. A real bridge, a chance to heal something real. He sketched relentlessly. He studied load-bearing structures. He walked to the riverbank himself, watching children board unstable canoes to school. "This bridge must stand strong," he whispered to the wind. After weeks of work, he submitted his design. The Musa Lawal Memorial Bridge, named after his father. Simple, elegant, strong. The judges called his blueprint inspiring, technically sound, emotionally anchored. Kamal won. The bridge was approved. On the day the foundation stone was laid, Amina stood beside her son wearing the best wrapper she had owned. She watched Kamal lift a small speed of cement, his hands steady, his jaw firm. Cameras flashed, people clapped. But behind Kamal's smile, pain flickered. Victories do not erase scars, they illuminate them. As he pressed cement into the earth, he whispered, voice trembling, "For you, Papa." Amina heard it. Her eyes glistened. In that moment, she realized Kamal wasn't just building bridges across rivers. He was building one between past and future, between pain and purpose, between loss and healing.
While Kamal was building bridges, Hajara was building herself. The quiet girl who once traced letters in dusty notebooks had grown into a young woman with sharp eyes, nimble fingers, and a heart full of ambition. Her world smelled of fabric, thread, and dreams stitched tightly into seams. Hajara's love affair with fashion had begun long before she fully understood it. She remembered the nights when her mother's lamp glowed golden against the walls as she helped fold patterns and press collars. She had watched Amina turn scraps of cloth into beauty, turning rags into pride. Now, years later, Hajara had taken the lessons further. She no longer just helped, she led. Her small room doubled as a workshop. Spools of thread lined shelves like colorful soldiers standing at attention. Old dresses, torn blouses, and cast-off fabric piled in neat stacks waiting for Hajara's touch. Each piece had potential. To others, it was trash. To Hajara, it was raw material for brilliance. One humid afternoon, she sat hunched over a tattered wrapper, fingers prickling as the needle danced in and out. Sweat ran down her back. Ibrahim, now 9, sat nearby, balancing pins on a tray as he pretended to be an assistant. "Mama used to fix things," he said casually. "I guess fixing can make beautiful things too." Hajara smiled faintly, wiping her brow. "Exactly, Ibrahim. Everything broken can be better than before if you know how to make it right." She worked for hours, her scissors cutting precise lines, thread pulling seams like magic. She experimented with bold colors, daring combinations no one else dared wear. The neighborhood women had begun to notice. "Ah, Hajara," Mama Tinu said one morning as she visited her stall. "You've got hands made for miracles. These designs, they are not ordinary." Hajara blushed, eyes downcast. "Thank you, Mama." But in her heart, she knew ordinary had never been enough. Not for her, not for the memory of the hard nights, the beans and tears, the fear of losing the home they had fought to keep. Every stitch she made was a rebellion against poverty, grief, and limitation. Opportunity knocked unexpectedly. A wealthy client arrived one afternoon wearing a flowing gown in shades of turquoise and gold. Her driver parked roughly outside Hajara's tiny workshop. "Are you Hajara?" the woman asked, sharp but curious. "Yes, ma'am," Hajara replied, standing and brushing dust off her wrapper. "I heard you make clothes, special clothes. I have an event in 2 days. Can you make a dress?" Hajara's heart thumped like a festival drum. 2 days, that was barely enough, but she nodded. "Yes, ma'am, I'll deliver." The woman handed her a rich, heavy fabric. "Make it unforgettable. I want everyone to remember me." And just like that, Hajara plunged into one of the most intense nights of her young career. The sewing machine hummed like a loyal companion. Thread snagged. Needle pricked fingers until small spots of blood dotted the fabric. She didn't notice the pain. Her mind was a whirlwind of design, precision, and creativity. Ibrahim and Kamal watched quietly, assisting where they could, knowing better than to disturb the storm of brilliance. By dawn, the dress was ready. It flowed like water, clinging to curves and falling in graceful waves. Hajara held it up, marveling at her own work. It was no longer tattered scraps. It was art. The client returned, eyes wide as she slipped into the gown. She twirled once, twice, then laughed, delighted. "Hajara, you are a genius. Everyone will see me. Everyone will remember me." Word spread quickly. Soon, Hajara had requests pouring in, engagements, weddings, naming ceremonies. She began charging higher fees. With each new order, her confidence grew, as did her reputation. But behind the excitement, Hajara remembered why she worked so hard. She remembered the nights when her mother could barely stretch coins for school fees, the days she and Kamal worked to cover rent, the tears that had once fallen over a pot of beans. Her hands, though now nimble and skilled, still carried the memory of struggle.
Each stitch was more than fabric. It was survival, resilience, and a promise. We will rise. One evening, Hajara sat outside with Amina, drinking sweetened tea. The stars hung like scattered diamonds above their small home. "Mama," Hajara said softly, "do you know what I think?" Amina looked up from her cup. "What, my child?" "I think all those nights we cried, all those days we struggled, it made me this way. Without them, I would never have wanted to do this. I would never have tried to make something beautiful from nothing." Amina smiled, eyes glistening. "Yes, my daughter, pain teaches us, but it is love that gives us the courage to learn from it." Hajara sipped her tea, feeling the warmth seep into her chest. Her success was no longer a dream. It was slowly becoming a reality. But it was a reality built not just from talent, but from the ashes of hardship, perseverance, and the lessons of a mother who refused to let life break them completely. And somewhere in the distance, the faint hum of a sewing machine reminded her the world was waiting for her creations, for the girl who could turn rags into gowns and tears into triumph. The path ahead was bright, stitched together by needle, thread, and stubborn ambition. Hajara smiled. Tomorrow would be another day of creation, another chance to turn scraps into magic. While Hajara stitched dreams into fabric, Kamal built them from metal, wires, and scrap. The youngest, Ibrahim, now 12, had inherited a piece of both their worlds, the curiosity of his brother and the patience of his sister. But it was Kamal who carried the spark of genius that no school or obstacle could dim. The boy who once fixed radios in the dim light of a kerosene lamp had grown into a young man who could see solutions where others saw only broken things. Fans, bicycles, motors, even old generators, anything discarded or considered useless came alive under his hands. One hot afternoon, Kamal crouched in the backyard, dismantling an old rusted generator. Sparks flew, metal clinked, his tongue peeked out in concentration. Ibrahim hovered nearby, holding a screwdriver with fingers too small to twist it properly. "Are you sure this will work?" Ibrahim asked nervously. Kamal didn't look up. "Of course it will. Just watch carefully." Amina stepped onto the veranda, wiping sweat from her brow. "Kamal, remember, this is for the community center, not just for fun." He grinned. "Mama, I'm making sure the lights will stay on during their classes. No more dark rooms, no more missed lessons. You'll see." The generator, once silent for years, roared back to life under his fingers. Ibrahim clapped in delight, while Amina's eyes welled with pride. It wasn't just about fixing things. It was about giving life to neglected pieces of the world, about bringing light where there had been darkness, about making a difference, one spark at a time. By 16, Kamal's talent had become widely known. Neighbors came with broken fans, old radios, even phones that no one else could repair. Kamal worked tirelessly, charging little, sometimes nothing, teaching himself engineering principles from old textbooks his mother had bought secondhand. One evening, a local school principal brought an entire classroom's worth of damaged projectors and computers. The school couldn't afford replacements, and classes were being disrupted. Kamal surveyed the mess. "I can fix all of them, but it will take time." "You can do this?" the principal asked, skeptical. "I can," Kamal said simply, with the calm confidence of someone who had faced much worse. He spent the next 2 weeks working tirelessly. He mapped wires, replaced broken circuits, reassembled screens, and tested every piece. Amina helped where she could, sewing protective covers for fragile components, while Ibrahim fetched tools and parts. When he finally switched on the last projector, the classroom lights flickered, then stabilized. Screens glowed brightly. Students cheered when they returned to see working equipment. Amina, watching from the back, felt tears prick her eyes. Her boy had taken scraps and despair and turned them into hope. But Kamal's talent came with weight. Nightmares from that rainy night when Musa died haunted him. Every time he saw a car swerve dangerously, a bridge tremble, or a motor fail, he felt a surge of responsibility. "You fix everything, Kamal," Ibrahim said one night, watching his brother tinker with an old radio. "But what about your heart? Kamal smiled faintly, hiding the tension behind tired eyes. Everything broken deserves to be fixed first. Hearts take time. Still, every success, every small miracle he created was a step toward healing, not just for others, but for himself. Word of his skills reached beyond the neighborhood. A local tech company invited him to intern, impressed by his reputation for fixing machines that others had abandoned. Kamal, eyes wide with excitement, accepted. For the first time, he imagined a future bigger than their tiny home, bigger than the streets lined with potholes and broken dreams. At the company, he thrived. Old computers, faulty generators, and neglected machinery became puzzles he solved with ease. Supervisors called him ingenious, colleagues called him miracle worker, but Kamal remained humble, remembering the nights in their little home when beans on the fire and lantern light were all they had. One evening, he returned home with his first paycheck. Amina hugged him so tightly it hurt. "You did it, my son. You've made us proud," she whispered. Kamal handed her the money. "This is for Hajara's designs, your sewing business, and Ibrahim's schooling. We're all rising together." Amina's heart soared. Her children were no longer just surviving, they were thriving. Yet, as he repaired and rebuilt, Kamal kept a secret dream tucked deep inside: to create something that could prevent accidents like the one that took his father. A bridge, a road, a vehicle system, something permanent that would save lives. That dream drove him. Every spark, every motor, every wire was practice. Every failure taught him. Every sleepless night, every prick of a needle, every blistered finger was a step closer. And in the quiet of the night, when only the sound of the generator hummed and Ibrahim slept, Kamal would sit alone thinking, "One day I will fix the world." And slowly, piece by piece, he was starting.
Years had passed since that fateful night when the Lawal family's world had shattered. The beans on the fire, the sleepless nights, and the thread-stung fingers had all been forged into a quiet, relentless determination. The children Amina had once watched with worry and tenderness had grown into young adults, each carrying a fragment of her love, her strength, and her husband's memory. The house that once felt too small for grief now felt like a cradle for dreams. The small veranda where Amina had counted coins and whispered prayers had witnessed miracles in slow motion. Kamal stood in front of a gleaming steel bridge spanning a river in a northern state. People crossed it safely every day, students, traders, and travelers alike. The Musalawal Memorial Bridge bore his father's name, and every time he saw it, a strange mix of pride and quiet ache filled him. The boy who had once fixed radios in the lantern's glow had built something enduring, something that saved lives. Journalists snapped photos. Engineers shook his hand. Children pointed at the bridge, whispering, "That's the one built by the young engineer." Kamal smiled politely, but inside, he remembered the night he had cried silently, thinking of a father lost too soon. He had transformed pain into purpose. Hajara Studio, in the bustling heart of Lagos, hummed with energy. Rolls of silk, lace, and chiffon were stacked neatly. Models twirled down the makeshift runway, their laughter filling the space. Fashion critics, clients, and celebrities inspected every seam. Her designs were no longer the product of scraps. They were luxury, elegance, and innovation woven together. Amina, standing in the corner, felt tears prick her eyes as she watched her daughter direct a team of assistants, sketching with precision, commanding respect. "Mama, do you like it?" Hajara asked, holding up a shimmering gown. Amina's voice trembled with joy. "It is magnificent, my child. You've done it." Hajara had transformed determination into artistry. She had stitched together not just fabric, but reputation, influence, and independence. Ibrahim, the youngest, had found his niche in technology.
Unlike Kamal, he wasn't building bridges. He was designing apps that solved everyday problems for ordinary Nigerians. His startup, humble in beginnings but vast in ambition, had begun to attract investors and international attention. He stood at a tech conference demoing a new app that tracked traffic patterns to prevent accidents in real time. As the audience applauded, he remembered sitting beside Kamal while fixing the generator, listening to his mother's stories and learning resilience from his siblings. "I never thought I'd make it this far," he whispered to himself, fingers trembling slightly. That evening, Amina prepared for a gathering she had dreamed about but had never dared hope to see. The children had each returned home to celebrate their combined success. Kamal in his crisp engineer's suit, Hajara in a striking designer dress of her own creation, Ibrahim holding a sleek tablet prototype. The house smelled of fried fish, jollof rice and stew, the aroma of home, resilience and triumph. Friends and neighbors who had witnessed their struggle over the years came to congratulate them, many shedding tears as they recalled the days when beans on the fire and tears in the eyes had defined the household. Amina sat in her favorite chair, the one that had felt like a throne ever since she had endured those early days. She looked at her children, her 3 pillars, and her chest swelled with gratitude. "You've made it," she said softly, almost to herself. Kamal stepped forward, taking her hand. "Mama, we did it together. Every sleepless night, every stitch, every repaired radio, it led us here." Hajara knelt beside her, pressing a kiss to her hand. "Mama, none of this would be possible without you. You believed in us when we didn't believe in ourselves." Ibrahim held up his tablet, showing a visualization of the traffic app in action. "Mama, this one's for you too. We'll keep building, keep improving." The 3 of them together were more than success stories. They were a living testament to resilience, love, and unity. Outside, the evening sky burned gold and purple. The wind whispered through the trees like applause. Inside, Amina's heart danced quietly, content and full. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the new house, warm and triumphant. Gone were the cracks in the walls, the uneven tiles, the leaky roof. The air smelled of fresh paint, polished wood, and the subtle aroma of jasmine from the garden Hajara had insisted on planting. It was a home that reflected not just comfort, but victory. The culmination of years of struggle, sacrifice, and relentless determination. Amina stepped inside, her hands trembling slightly as she ran them over the smooth surfaces of the furniture. The staircase gleamed. The living room was spacious, filled with light, with cushions arranged just so. Yet it was not the walls or the decor that took her breath away. It was the chair. Her chair. A golden armchair stood proudly in the center of the living room, soft cushions inviting her to sit, steady arms promising rest. It was a chair unlike any she had ever owned. It seemed to hum with gratitude, respect, and recognition. Amina sank into it, feeling the weight of her journey lift slightly from her shoulders. Her children stood around her, grinning. Kamal, now a respected civil engineer, had just returned from overseeing a bridge project. Hajara, the fashion designer whose creations now adorned socialites across the country, had set aside her latest sketches to be here. Ibrahim, the tech innovator, clutched his laptop like a shield, a smile stretched wide across his young face. "Sit, Mama," Kamal said gently. "This is your time." Hajara added, "You've carried us through everything. Now it's time we carried you, at least a little." Ibrahim hopped onto the sofa beside them. "It's the best chair ever. Mama, do you feel like a queen?" Amina laughed, a sound that had been scarce in their home for years. A melody finally returned. "I feel like someone who survived a storm and came out into sunlight," she said softly, tears glistening in her eyes. They spent the day reminiscing. Kamal spoke of the bridge that now bore their father's name, the lives it had saved, and the pride he felt in shaping something permanent. Hajara shared stories of her studio successes, the clients who raved about her designs, and the runway shows where her creations had turned heads. Ibrahim excitedly demonstrated the traffic app he had developed, which was beginning to attract attention from city planners and tech investors alike. Amina listened, heart swelling with pride. She remembered the beans on the fire, the sleepless night, the time she had sown through tears. She remembered counting every coin, stretching every naira, and praying with every breath she took. And now her children's triumphs were the living proof of those sacrifices. She looked at them and saw more than success. She saw resilience, courage, love, determination. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every struggle had led to this room, to this moment. She closed her eyes for a moment, imagining Musa, her husband, watching them from somewhere beyond. Perhaps he smiled at the bridge, the fashion, the technology. Perhaps he nodded in quiet pride at their journey. As the evening approached, the family gathered in the living room. The golden chair had become a symbol, a place of honor for the woman who had carried them through the darkest nights. Kamal placed a small bouquet of flowers on the table beside her. Hajara draped a shawl over the arm of the chair, and Ibrahim tucked a small cushion behind her back. Amina leaned back, letting herself fully relax for the first time in years. The chair held her like it was made for the weight of her story, steady and warm. Around her, laughter and chatter filled the space, the room alive with memories and dreams. "This is everything I ever wanted," Amina whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Not just the house, not just the success, but this, being together, seeing you all thrive, feeling that we survived." Her children smiled, each aware that this moment was not just about material comfort, but about the journey, the tears, the determination, the nights when hope seemed fragile, and the mornings that demanded courage. The golden chair was more than a chair. It was a throne of triumph, a resting place for a mother who had fought storms, carried burdens, and nurtured greatness. Outside, the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in gold and crimson. The Lawal family sat together in the glow of their home, laughter mingling with the evening breeze, hearts full and dreams alive. Amina closed her eyes and breathed deeply. For the first time in years, she felt truly light, truly happy, truly home. And in that golden chair, she understood something deeply. Happiness was not something to chase. It was built, stitch by stitch, bridge by bridge, invention by invention, moment by moment. She smiled.